Michael, it hasn't been that long since we spoke. We recorded a conversation last week, so
Yeah. Uh,
and here I am. You're in a different place, and I'm in a different state, and the world seems to be completely different in the span of 4 or 5 days. So,
That's
um,
the way the world goes, Michael. Let me get this out of the way so we don't have distractions. Yeah, that's the way it goes. I'm looking at this map that you sent me of those strikes in Iran right now, which in reality, I see a lot of hyper analyzing the so-called strike on the nuclear event. We know that Trump lies when he breathes. We know that Netanyahu lies when he breathes. We can't trust anything from the Iranians. We can't. There's no. I don't see any sources of information that we can actually trust. And so, but at the end of the day, I see a lot of people analyzing the alleged strike on the nuclear facilities, which Iran says were closed anyway, which I've heard before this strike even happened. I don't know. At the end of the day, skipping by that part, it doesn't matter. Iran is a member of the SCO, right? The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is like the other NATO, right? Now, when I bring this up, people get upset when I'm like, you. I brought it up a few days ago on a private call with numerous people, and some people got upset, that saying SCO, it doesn't matter what SCO is, they can't help Iran, which is utter nonsense. I get this stuff coming from so-called analysts, you know what I mean? SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, go to their website. It's got member states that include the main headquarters is in China, right? Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It's like NATO. Again, organizational members include China, Russia, Iran, Pakistan, India, right? Basically, there's a train that goes all the way from China deep into Iran, right? A train. It's open now, right? A big, nice train. There's and if you look at the routes that can come down from Russia and other SCO members, there's going to be no resupply problem for Iran, right? They have huge strategic depth. Iran is a huge country. They got huge mountains. They got massive terrain advantages. Israel has no terrain advantages. It's actually got its back up against a wall called the sea, right? The Mediterranean. And it's tiny and it's surrounded by enemies who actually hate it, not because they're Jewish, because the leadership of Israel is not Jewish anyway. They're Zionists, right? Some are Jewish, some are atheists, some are I don't know what they are, but and some certainly would be Jewish. But the Zionists are not. Zionism is not Judaism. Never has been, never will be. Most of the Zionists seem to be actually American Christians. Some Zionists are actually Muslims. Many Zionists are actually atheists, and they'll point that out to you all the time. But the Zionists conflate Zionism and Judaism so that that's their you can't touch me card. But it only works with Americans, really. It doesn't work with anybody else. But with Americans, it works with American Zionists, mostly Christians, right? That's who it works with. That's the magic wand. It's the thing. It's the word that makes the dog attack type thing. But in reality, many of the Israelis actually come from Russia and they speak Russian. And Putin just reached out to him publicly. I mean, Putin just said publicly he's not aiding Iran, which almost certainly he is. He's a serious player, but because he said Israel is basically a Russian-speaking country, right? Because about 2 million of the people in Israel, according to Putin, come from Russia or former Soviet Union, and certainly a huge amount do. If you've been to Israel, you'll know this to be true. That a huge amount of Israelis are actually Russians, right? And they speak Russian, and so this is much more complex than a lot of people imagine. Iran can get resupplied. They're not going to run out of missiles unless China runs out, unless other people run out that can supply them. And people keep talking about air superiority as if that makes, first of all, we don't have air superiority. That's nonsense. By the way, since the B 2 strike, alleged B 2 strike, we don't even know if it happened, since the alleged B 2 strike on the facility which may or may not have had nuclear weapons. There's been massive attacks on Israel. Massive. You're not seeing that in the news. I see people coming out with articles right now. Just a few hours ago, I saw one come out. We're basically waiting for Iran's response. Waiting for Iran's response. There's parts of Israel that are in rubble now since that attack. They launched some very large missiles since that attack, right? And smashed right through Iron Dome, blew up. I mean, these are large warhead missiles, right? And so you don't have to wait to see how Iran's going to respond. They responded already with very large missiles. And Iran is being, Israel is being reduced. I don't see a clear path to Israel's survival. And I know a lot of people watching this probably never heard of my name, never seen my face before, but I've spent a lot of time in wars around the world, studying wars, been in a lot of war, and I've been very accurate for a couple of decades on my war work. And look at Ukraine, for instance. People like me warned before the first shot was fired, don't do it, Ukraine may be destroyed. And people are like, oh, you're crazy. Look at all these planes and ships or whatever. Not you know what I mean? That all the rest of the partners have, and NATO's got these advantages. And look what's happening to Ukraine. Don't listen to anybody who said we should go to war with Ukraine should go to war with Russia, which, by the way, is the same war. It's not separate.
This episode is brought to you by McElvaney Financial Group. Their advisors bring a depth of knowledge and experience that allow them to serve their clientele with care, ensuring their financial needs are met now and in the future. Personally, I'm not saying cash is worthless, but you can see what's happening. It's worth less every year. Gold is the opposite. Click on the promo link in the show notes or go to www.mcelvaney.com/coffeeandamike. Mike, do you remember? Do you remember the propaganda at the beginning of that war, though? Wasn't it grandmas and grandpas in Ukraine were fighting the Russians, and there was all these fake narratives of stories, and
total lies.
And you're seeing the parallels.
Clear. Zionist lies. It's the same war, and Putin said that I think yesterday. I've been saying it for a long time. I think Matt Bracken has been saying it for a long time. Matt's been very accurate, and the Ukraine war and this war and what's going on in Panama right now. Panama is melting down right now. Panama just shut off a lot of their communications. For instance, Starlink doesn't work in a part of Panama right now, and the Panamanian government just announced that it's been shut off, and as have many other internet providers. I just put it on Substack earlier. If you go to my Substack, you'll see some video and other things from Panama. I've been talking about Panama now for going on 5 years, certainly 4 years or so, and Panama is in trouble. I think Panama will be ripped apart, and that is part of this same war, right? Now, again, there's people in Panama that are saying the same thing that people in Ukraine and other places said in the past, that no, it's not happening. It's not happening. You don't know anything about Panama. I grew up in Panama. Whatever, man. I grew up in war. You know what I mean? I didn't grow up in war, but I spent many years in wars around the world, and I know what I'm looking at. I feel like an oncologist who treats cancer, and I can come into your country without speaking your language, and I can look around and I can take some inventory. It'll take a while. It'll take me a while. I have to travel around. I have to talk with a lot of people. Have to see a lot of things. Have to take some pulse. And I can tell you whether or not I think you're going to go into war. And my accuracy is quite good. I've been warning about Panama for a long time, and I've been giving specific reasons. And again, you're always told, no, it's not true. It's happening. It's happening. So I turned out to be right again. But it's like cheating, because I know what I'm looking for. Like an oncologist who's been doing it for a long, long time can walk into a room, smell the room, look at the patient and say, yeah, maybe does, maybe doesn't. But I think so, and has a high rate of hit without doing any test whatsoever, right? And I've gotten to be like that with war. You look at Israel right now, looking at the whole picture here, which is difficult for most people to do. Maybe 1 out of 1,000 people has enough background knowledge to actually make a larger assessment of what's going on. And in that larger framework, I'm not seeing a clear path to Israel's survival out of this. I'm seeing many, many clear paths to Israel being destroyed. And I've been warning about this. It's too late now. The war, once a war is actually born, right? The fighting recently between Pakistan and India, it looked like that was going to be born into a war. It didn't. It was close, right? It was cresting, let's put it that way. But once a war is actually born, nobody is really in control to turn it off anymore. The war itself is a sort of life form, right? And we've reached that point with this war. Israel and Trump, they have no ability to turn this off. Many people are seeing blood in the water. People see, for instance, the genocide that Israel has done in Gaza. Look on Google Earth. If you remember, write it down. Look on Google Earth and look at the farmland that Israel has destroyed, running their vehicles up and down the farmland. You can see the tracks, the clear tracks on Google Earth. I mean, I spent hours looking at Google Earth just at all the damage. It's unbelievable. The rest of the world can see it. Only a subset of people are unwilling to see it, and they're like, no, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. I tell you what, that's like saying, you're wrong, doctor, I don't have cancer. No, I don't have cancer. Please leave. Okay, bye, and you're going to die, right? Or you can listen, you have cancer, and if you don't do something about it, you're going to die, right? And that's what's happening right now with Panama, and that's what happened with Ukraine. Ukraine, as we know it, is dead. It's not going to die. It is dead. Now it's a matter of how it's going to look when it's all done. It's going to be a different Ukraine. Parts of it are going to certainly be gone. How much is going to be gone? I do not know. Nobody knows. Anybody who tells you they know doesn't know what they're talking about. The same with Israel. The Israel we knew, in all likelihood, is not going to survive this. It's got too many weaknesses. It's got too many powerful enemies. It just launched attacks on Iran. And guess what? Iran didn't fall for, we'll nuke you. I mean, Israel may nuke Iran if they actually have nukes. We don't know. I mean, they constantly say, Israel has between so-and-so and so-and-so nukes. How do we know that? How do we really know there's gold in Fort Knox? We don't know that. We don't even know if bombs just dropped out of the B-2s that Trump announced. We don't really know that. And if Israel does have the nukes and they actually nuke Iran, that could be a problem. Israel could cease to exist instantly if somebody responds, right? And like China or Russia or someone else. There's a lot. Pakistan could respond. Remember, Pakistan is a member of the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, as is Iran, China, and Russia. Russia, by the way, and Russian and Chinese are the official languages of the SCO organization, by the way. And Pakistan has been crystal clear. They'll nuke Israel, right? So why would Pakistan not give some of their nuclear weapons as a donation to Iran? Iran is now the man in the arena for the SCO, right? And there's if the Strait of Hormuz is closed, which I've been predicting for quite a while, I published it this morning. Now you see the West, like Israel and the United States, are saying that Iran is threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz. Why would Iran actually do that? Now, why would Iran close the Strait of Hormuz? That would be like, why would Russia destroy Nord Stream, right? Russia did not destroy Nord Stream. See, that was the United States or space aliens. That's who destroyed Nord Stream. It was not Russia. They built Nord Stream. That Germany and Russia built Nord Stream, right? Strait of Hormuz, if it's closed, almost certainly will be closed by Americans or Israelis, and then blame Iran as casus belli, as increased casus belli, as if you need it, to do something like put troops on the ground near Hormuz, which would end up likely in the long term as a slaughter on our troops, right? I was in Iraq for 2 years. I was in Afghanistan for 2 years, 4 years in those wars. So these people that are talking about air superiority, we didn't just have air superiority. We had air dominance. We had B-1s flying over doing normal airstrikes. Can you imagine that? Sometimes I was on missions and we had actual B-1s that were flying out of Qatar, coming all the way to Afghanistan. The B-1 would be up there just flying around way, way up there, right? And if we needed a bomb, they would just like dribble one or two out, from almost outer space, basically. Or we had, F-15s and F-16s and all that stuff. Sometimes the British would show up with a Harrier with like one GBU hanging off or whatever, and 23 minutes of fuel. And but we had air dominance over those countries, air dominance, and we see how. In other words, dominance means it's completely unopposed, right? We had airfields in Afghanistan and in Iraq, so they could literally land and come on it. They could do an airstrike like 10 minutes away from where they're parked, 5 minutes away. They were regularly doing it. Sometimes aircraft would take off and do airstrikes. You could see the airstrike from the airfield where they took off from. I saw this stuff all the time, right? That's such air dominance. It's over the top. Literally, you're barely off the runway and you're dropping your weapons, right? So that's not the way it is with Iran. Iran is huge. Iran is filled with mountains. You got to refuel. Eventually, they're going to hit you with surface air missiles sooner or later, because they're going to get them from their partners if they don't have them all over the place yet. And that's not air. That's not. And look how Iraq and Afghanistan turned out. Again, I spent 4 years in those wars, and I know well how they turned out, and I know how much we own the skies. We completely own the skies in a way that's never been done before, to my knowledge. And yet they turned out badly. The air dominance, that's a joke. At the end of the day, Iran can keep launching those missiles. Like Matt Bracken mentioned this. We were chatting, I guess, yesterday at this point. And, like Matt accurately said, you can just launch a few missiles a day from Iran if you want, and that'll put the Israelis in their bunkers. And I've seen this happen in Iraq and Afghanistan. The enemy would shoot a few missiles at us, do some IDF with their indirect fire with their mortars or little rockets or whatever. I mean, they were deadly rockets. They're not little when they're coming at you. But and then everybody would run to their bunkers, like on Kandahar Airfield or Bagram or Camp Liberty in Iraq. You'd have thousands and thousands of troops running to their bunkers all the time, which was ridiculous. We should have kept moving, but that's what the Israelis are going to do. Every time those sirens go off, if you sign up for the Red Alert app or the SOFR app, if I know how to pronounce it right, these alarms just come and they come and they come. They're constantly getting attacked, and everybody runs to their bunkers. So the economy just grinds to a halt. Maersk just said they're going to stop doing business in Haifa for now. Some hypersonic missiles exploded at Haifa, the big port. And so all these things are additive. Now you see people, somebody sent me something this morning, a graph of, the Israeli markets are doing fine and actually going up. That's obvious bullshit, right? Who is going to invest in Israel right now other than out of some emotional or just idiotic moves? You know what I mean? What they're probably doing is more like the Mississippi scheme in 1720 in France, when the government just our government or whomever just prints money and buys a bunch of stuff to boost it up and make it look like it's going up. Or they just make a fake chart because, they do fake bullets. They do fake bullets at fake assassinations. They do fake, the fake assassination was so nakedly and embarrassingly fake, and yet people still believe it. Oh, that blood on his ear had to be real. How do you know that? They cleared off all the evidence immediately, took fire hose on the roof, they disassembled the stands where they were. These things are so obvious, it's almost embarrassing to have to keep saying it. Likewise, what we're seeing with Israel as being the super dupers of the world, the Iron Dome that can't be penetrated. The Iron Dome has become irrelevant. It's a joke. It's been a sink of money, and it's allowed in Israel's control over a lot of U.S. politicians or whoever's behind Israel is running dry. Because remember, the rest of the world, other than a lot of American Zionists, the rest of the world not only doesn't care, they hate Israel, right? So as the support in the United States decreases, and it is decreasing, as it decreases, so go eventually Israel's lifeline, right? While the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, clearly is getting stronger. China's building railroads all over Asia and all over the world. I go and see these things. I physically go see them. We go see them in places like Thailand, right? We see the work that they're doing right now at the Panama Canal, right? We see these things. Meanwhile, I think in my best estimate that Israel will not walk out of this alive. Actually, many of Israelis have already left Israel. You know, the Ministry of Transportation in Israel has blocked many of the Israelis from even being able to leave.
So,
Okay,
let me read this to you because you're talking about this. I mean to cut you off. Let me read this to you. So my friend Jessica, who lives in Israel, posted this. I didn't send it to you, but let me just share with you what she said earlier. So it's Jessica Loves MJK is her handle on Twitter, and she said she was asked a question. Are you okay? She was asked, are you okay? Did you get out of Israel? And she responds back, no. My flight to Prague for keynote talk on June 16th at the Bitcoin Prague was canceled due to closed airspace from June 13th to, quote, who knows when. It's hell here. Missile hits not more than a few kilometers away from me, daily. The Canadian embassy, she's a Canadian citizen, pretty much told me you're on your own. The parallels to previous situations, be it fake pandemics or wars, are not lost on me. Attempts at seizing sovereignty are real, and they're right. I am on my own. That's she's in Israel. She can't get out.
Israel's gone, man. Israel, I don't see it getting better. Again, the idea that Iran's going to run out of missiles, who comes up with this stuff? I mean, just like, cuckoo. It's the magic. I can do my safe space. I can create it like, in my imagination, Israel is super powerful. They've got Mossad, the best intelligence in the world. I think they do have the best intelligence in the world against the United States, right? They can create fantasy land, fantasy island, Epstein Island, do massive elite capture, even better than the Chinese appear to be able to do it. And the Chinese are pretty doggone good at it. And meanwhile, who's going to fight? Now, Israel has about 9 million people or so, right? Of which about 2 million are actually Arabs. So how's that going to go for you? And they've got about 500,000 others. They've got, according to Putin, about 2 million that speak Russian. I don't know if that's true, from Russia and former Soviet Union. They've got a lot of Orthodox that are never going to fight in the Israeli Defense Forces. In fact, they hate Zionists. A lot of them absolutely hate Zionists. That's Orthodox Jews who live in Israel and in New York and across Canada and the United States and the world who absolutely hate Zionists. They hate each other more than ISIS hates Zionists, and Zionists hate ISIS. They kill each other. Zionists kill each other all the time as well, by the way. But what I'm getting to with that is when you whittle down that 9 million or so people in Israel and subtract about 2 million Arabs and subtract off the rest who are not going to fight for the IDF, I mean, how many are really core Israelis that we're defending, right? Is it, I don't know, 2 million? That's probably a directionally accurate number. Why would we be defending a place that's the size of a state, basically, with a couple of million core people, with all of our might, with all of our national might? I'll tell you why we're doing this. Because the land that they're on is strategically important. The Suez Canal's there. There's a lot of energy off the coast of Gaza. The idea of building Ben Gurion Canal is still alive. The Indo-European corridor, of course, is being, that's going to be a reality no matter who's there. People want that land. China wants it. Russia wants it. The neighbors want it. And the Zionists, who are a construct, in that iteration, are a construct of British intelligence. A lot of the Jews are actually useful idiots. A lot of people think that the Jews run the world, but in some cases, the Jews are just as much useful idiots as are many Christians, as are many others in the world, right? Like the Christians who will give their last breath to save the magical elves of Israel, while Israel kills Christians in Gaza, while Israel bombs churches in Gaza, while Israel supplies weapons to Azeris to genocide Christians in Armenia. I went over to Armenia talking with people about this a couple of years ago with Masako. I mean, Israel supplies weapons to genocide Christians, and yet they just go, yeah, well, okay, we'll pretend that's not happening. And that's what they do. They pretend it's not happening, because in the greater architecture of that belief system, all the Jews are supposed to go back to Israel. They're supposed to be in the great battle, and many are supposed to convert to Christianity along the way. But along the way, huge amounts die, right? Of course, the Israelis, or not Israelis, let's say a lot of the Zionists and Jews realize this, and they're actually using each other. This is a dark, twisted thing that's going on. It's not all lovey-dovey, right? I was in church this morning. Doc Chambers was preaching actually here in Texas, and anyway, at the end of the day, I've been talking about this with a lot of people in Texas and a lot of people around the United States. There are obviously people that will give their last breath to Israel, and they probably will. But unfortunately, they're taking us with them, and Israel is taking us with them as well. But at the end of the day, I don't see a clear path to Israel's survival.
Why do you think Trump did what he did last night? I mean, we've read different all this information out there on X, and you've seen the 5D chess and the bunker bombs, if they were dropped, hit the side of a mountain and didn't do any damage to the nuclear facilities. So what is your assessment of what they were thinking and what they were doing?
Well, if Trump and Netanyahu are trying to destroy Israel, they're doing a great job. In fact, it's hard to top their plan, right? For instance, both push the death jabs on their populations, right? Both push drugs on the streets, and people say Trump doesn't do it. Yeah, he does. Actually, he does. Trump does. He pushed Amendment 3 in Florida to legalize cannabis in Florida, right? Trump's always pushing bad stuff. He pushed the death jab, and people say, no, Fauci fooled him. Look, I'm done with arguing with people about Fauci fooled him. Seriously, go have fun with that in the corner or whatever. But at the end of the day, Netanyahu and Trump pushed the death jab on their people. Netanyahu had a needle mounted, a syringe in his office, right? Like it's an arrow missile, right? By the way, Netanyahu is always claiming to be. He'll throw the anti-Semite card so hard. Look at him. Screenshot my face and screenshot Netanyahu and see who's the whitest. Netanyahu is a European, right? He's not a Jew. He is an atheist. His name was Maliakovsky. His family name was Maliakovsky, from Poland. Ended up moving ultimately to Israel. Changed name to Netanyahu so it would be all saintly and Jewish and all this stuff. He's not even Jewish. He's not even Semitic. And the first thing is you say something bad. He's a total Zionist. In fact, he's a construct like Ben Shapiro, the little dude that talks so fast and knows nothing, little violin player. If you say something bad, Ben Shapiro, again, who's whiter than I am, he'll throw the anti-Semite card. You can't make up this stuff. You remember the TV show Kung Fu, with the. A lot of people don't know Kung Fu. I was talking with some young guys about it the other day. I was showing Netanyahu on the big screen. I'm like, see how white he is? Does that guy look Semitic to you? Does he even know what a camel's breath smells like? You know what I mean? I do, but when the Kung Fu series came out, which is super famous, people our age know what it is, but a lot of people don't actually. The Kung Fu character on there, he's supposedly, Kung Fu master that comes around the old Wild West, like Texas or whatever, and gets in fights all the time and, defending what's right and that sort of thing. But the actual Kung Fu character is a white guy. He's a white guy. And when you read why did they use a white guy to play Chinaman in the Kung Fu series, which was a super famous series, they picked a white guy. They're very clear. They picked a white guy because an American audience, they thought, would not resonate with an actual Chinese-looking guy beating up cowboys all over the place, right? So they had to get a white guy to actually play a Chinaman who barely speaks English, right? So you got this white guy beating up, doing Kung Fu all over the place, kicks the knife, sticks to the ceiling, all these sorts of things, and that's what Netanyahu is. Netanyahu grew up part of his life in America, so he understands our cultures quite well. His English is perfect because he grew up part of his life in America, and so he's the perfect conduit. He's kung fu. He's just a Trudeau. He is Zelensky, right? Netanyahu is Trudeau. Netanyahu is Zelensky. Netanyahu is Rutte in Netherlands, or now NATO. Netanyahu is Biden. Netanyahu is Trump. They are installations like Abbott here in Texas, right? Netanyahu is one of those guys. He is an actor, right? And he obviously is not Semitic. He's not Jewish. He is Zionist. But he was raised like that since he was a child. When people are raised like that and they're communist, like Obama, those are called red diaper babies, right? A red diaper baby is a child that was born into an American Communist Party family. Those are called red diaper babies. Basically, Netanyahu is a Zionist baby. He's a Zionist baby, a Zionist diaper baby, right? So he was raised up in that, as was that guy at Ben Shapiro at Daily Wire. It's another construct. You think Daily Wire just popped up and was ultra successful out of nowhere? You know what I mean? And so you got this Zionist diaper baby, which was Ben Shapiro, allegedly the owner. I don't know who the owner was. Who really does? And so that's what's really going on, is this big movie, right? So when Netanyahu's gone, eventually, of course, he will be, because that's just the way these things go. Some other installation will go there, right? Now, years ago, when I used to travel with Israelis quite a lot in various countries, I used to like Netanyahu back then because I didn't see through it yet, right? And the Israelis, almost to a person, hated Netanyahu, and I would argue with him. I'm like, yeah, he's a great guy. Look what he's doing. He's standing up for Israel. Because back then, I was still supporting Israel strongly, right? Because I grew up in an environment in Central Florida, in an environment where people defended Jews and defended Israel, right? Because that's just what we're supposed to do. They're our bestest ally and all these sorts of things. Children from God. That's the way I was raised up. And I was raised up in that IMAX, the Truman Show, as are a lot of people. Most of us are raised in some sort of Truman Show. What does your movie look like? Yeah. And then over time, traveling around the world a lot, I jumped out of that ecosystem. Like most of my life now has been out of that ecosystem. So I'm outside the IMAX movie that most people are watching, and I'm going around the world to 99 countries for more than half of my life. And at some point I'm like, this is nonsense. Israel is a vampire. I mean, they are actually a construct to actually take eventually the Suez Canal. Keep in mind, when the Suez Canal opened, they had all kinds of the Suez Canal is one of the most important routes in the world, right? Up there with Panama Canal. It's one of the 7 top routes in the world, right? Strait of Malacca, the Strait of Hormuz, of course, Bab el-Mandeb, Strait of Gibraltar, Bosphorus, Turkish Straits, Danish Straits, right? I mean, these are very important routes, right? And so Israel, it happens to be right there. Thus, British and U.S. intelligence also got more and more into it over the years, have been strongly behind keeping Israel there and using the Jews as the magical elves. So in other words, our own government it's not just controlled by Jews. It's more of it's not that. It's more of an amorphous group of people who have a vested interest in a lot of strategic places, like Panama, of course, right? And so there's different information wars in different places that are custom fit. But the one there is particularly resonant with people that believe that they are actually biblical Jews. But Netanyahu clearly is not. His family's not even from that part of the world. He probably doesn't have one chromosome that came from that part of the world, right? I mean, he's European. He's whiter than I am, right? But again, he's playing Kung Fu Man in the movie so that when people see him, they see somebody they can resonate with. His English is perfect. He served in the military, did all kinds of brave things. So he checks all those marks, right? And he knows America, he grew up in America. And and then he'll just throw the anti-Semite card. That would be like the white actor in Kung Fu throwing the anti-Chinese card when he's actually a white guy, and it's a movie.
What do you think then at this moment, where we sit today, Sunday, June, what's the date today? June 22nd, with Trump and the whole MAGA movement? I wrote on X last night that I thought Trump's presidency ended last night with his bombing and the MAGA movement was dead. What are your thoughts when you hear that?
Well, yeah, I saw that. I think I retweeted you. I think I did. I'm not sure, but if nothing else, I think I left a comment. And the MAGA movement should have been dead a long time ago because look, he pushed the jab. What else do you need to do? And people say, well, other than the jab, why are you hung up on the jab? Why am I hung up on the jab? Are you kidding? That's a WMD released on our country. And people say, well, Trump didn't actually push the jab. He didn't force you to take it. Seriously, that's the depths of cognitive dissonance. It's the utter depths of hell on cognitive dissonance. They're saying, well, okay, here, Trump didn't put the pistol to your head. He just gave millions of pistols to others who would, right? And Trump said, it's the best pistol in the world. Everybody should let the doctor put it to your head and pull the trigger, right? So everybody who took that is now subject to dying soon. Many are already dead. They're not watching the show because they're actually dead, right? Many Trump voters who would have been watching the show right now are actually dead and they're gone, right? Why? Because they believed in Trump and Trump killed them. Now, some of those people, they were shot as much as somebody was shot in the chest with an M16. Trump provided the weapons, said they're the best in the world, yada, yada, yada. This is 2025. We're in June, late June. What is it? Yep, late June 2025. And he still sticks with the jab. What else is there to see? Where's Maya Angelou when you need her? When somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Where's Maya Angelou? I mean, I wish she was here to just say it with her voice because she speaks so well, much better. But Maya Angelou, she said it so clearly. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. When they push a weapon that's used on your children and your grandchildren and kills your friends and then asks you for donations so he can become president again. There's a lot of people that would already dead. If they could, they would reach from the grave and vote for him again, right? Because that's a cult. You never see the cult that you're in. Oh, you can't say that. You've got TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, is what they say. Trump derangement syndrome has a spectrum, and there are people on the other side that will vote for him. If he killed their whole family, they would vote for Trump. And I mean that. I studied cults. I infiltrated and lived with a cult in California, right? I am telling you, there is nothing that a cult won't do, and I mean nothing, right? They will actually nuke people, right? They will that say you're the great Satan. Oh, we should nuke them. It's like, that's what people say. They actually say, because somebody calls us the great Satan, we should go nuke them. Let's examine that for a moment. I should be quiet because, usually I'm alone studying, or this morning, actually, we went to church, but since that time, I've been here studying. And so when you give me the microphone, I haven't talked all day except for this morning at church, right? And there was only a few snippets. But so if I'm running on too much, I'll be quiet.
No.
But let me say something about the great Satan, if that's okay. We've seen in our country, our own Netanyahu pushed the jab on his own people. Now, some people say, well, the Israelis, they didn't even actually get the death jab. He was just getting others to take it. And then they go, and so that's okay. You can't make up this stuff. Many people are going, okay, the Israelis didn't get it, or it was, it doesn't hit their genes or whatever, which is, where do you come up with this stuff? A lot of these Jewish people are not even, they come from different family lines. There's not very many people that can be called genetic Jews. It's a small, tiny subset. You should get Al Johnson in here to talk about that. I mean, he studies this all the time. He's I would say my number one research partner when you add up the years together. And he's an Orthodox Jew, right? So he studies all this stuff. He knows, he's a big bookworm, even more than I am, which is pretty hard to do. But I asked him, I don't know, recently, where are the genetic Jews remaining? He's like, it's really a tiny number of people. And anyway, get Al on. But at the end of the day, that when it comes to the jab. Netanyahu pushed it on his own people, and the idea that the jab, doesn't kill Jews, according to RFK, said something about something along those lines. But so some people give that a pass. Then they're like, okay, somehow it's okay to murder everybody else. But then Trump pushed it as well. They both pushed it, right? That is, you don't need to know it. Maya Angelou, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time, right? And so now I'm talking about the great Satan. Both countries have a huge number of people in our governments who push LGBTQ and push gender changing from boys to girls and girls to meat products that are sold, right? It's unbelievable. And we push drugs on our people around the country. If you go to Israel, and you'll see druggies all over the place. I went to Israel. There's drug addicts everywhere. That place got fentanyl problem. They got the same problems that San Francisco has, right? They have the same problems that Portland has, and Washington, D.C., right? And so we've got places like Canada, went up there last year with Masako, pushing MAID, medical assistance in dying. If you go to the website, look up medical assistance in dying. You can go in there right now. You can fill out a form so that Canada will put you to death. You can go into a hospital or a MAID facility and be put to death on the same day for something minor. It's like a knee problem. Okay, you want to be put out of your business? Fine. They probably got you signing off all your last will and testament to the state or something. But at the end of the day, you can the government is literally killing people on the same day. They're doing it right now, right? That is great Satan stuff. What did Paul Harvey say? If I were the devil, right? Basically, push the drugs out there, push the alcohol out there, do all these things, get people to speak so many different languages so that they getting the families fighting each other. And that's what we are doing. And that's what people like Netanyahu and Trump actually support. He might not support all the LGBTQ because they've got to resonate with their audiences, but they do support other components of this thing. We do great Satan stuff as countries. We say it. Our own countries say it. Canada's doing MAID. I mean, Masako and I, we went to a clinic in Vancouver, Canada, and they were literally handing out hard drugs. They kicked us out of the clinic, right? I mean, it was a clinic. What do you call that place where there was a guy in the doorway trying to light his pipe, and he was just frozen. I took video. He could barely move his thumb. He's just like his fingers are going like this. You should see the video. And he's just stuck. He's literally stuck. He's like, reset button, right? And he's right in front of the doorway where you can walk inside and get hard drugs. And the whole street was like that, filled with zombies. And the government's doing it to him. Is that great Satan stuff? Is that a lie by Iran? Is that a lie that Israel just has been saying for decades, that Iran is about, 10 minutes, 2 weeks, 3 months from they did the same with Iraq, same with Libya, same with other countries, Syria. Hey, they're going to have these weapons of mass destruction and, very soon, 2 weeks, 2 months, 3 years, whatever. And they just keep saying the same thing about every country. And Americans like, yay. So we just keep believing the same thing. And we go do military action that does nothing but erode our soft power and cause devastation and destruction across the world. And we've been weakened. Our country, the United States, is so weak now. A lot of Americans don't get it at all. They don't get it. But I travel around America and I travel around the world and I see it, right? And I do a lot of war and I know what this means for us. We have a country that is not what it used to be, but meanwhile, China's building railways all over the place. Russia and China can resupply Iran by the hour, right? They can have new missiles, new radars. They can have missiles on the ground there. And listen, the Persians are as smart as any Jewish person ever was, right? This idea that the Jews are the smartest people in the universe, I'm not seeing it, right? I'm not seeing it. There's a lot of smart Chinese. There's a lot of smart Persians. There's a lot of smart Scottish people, a huge amount, actually. There's a lot of smart Russians, right? we've got a small group of people fighting against the Persians, the Chinese, the Russians, the Pakistanis, right? Fighting against all these people who will supply weapons and all sorts of other things like intelligence, like operatives that may hit targets for them opportunistically in different ways. China and Russia can provide massive, and keep in mind, it's not like it's happening over there. China, Russia, Iran, they are thick in Venezuela, very thick, and Cuba, and many other places, including Panama. Panama, right? Where I spent more than a year since Biden was installed. Right now, Panama itself is being ripped apart. It's being ripped apart. Like I mentioned earlier, Starlink is not working in Boca del Taurus right now. The government took it offline, right? As well as all the other internet.
What's ripping Panama apart right now then? What's
Oh, as I've said so many times with you and others, the 7 Indian tribes have been pulled together. Actually, if you go, I just took Laura Logan and some others, and Masako, of course, and Ann Vandersteel and others. I've taken them to the Chinese memorial on the Panama Canal, right next to the Chinese bridge that's being built, right next to the Hutchison port controlled by China. So there's a Chinese memorial there with 5 dragon claws, which means they're claiming it. 3 dragon claws means you're our friend. 4 dragon claws means you're our relative. 5 dragon claws means this is China's, right? They got those 5 dragon claws. And right inside that memorial is a Kuna Revolutionary Flag Memorial. So anybody in Panama City watching this, maybe you drive over Thatcher Ferry Bridge, the Pan American Highways Bridge, Bridge of the Americas, and you look as you go past that memorial on your right, if you're coming with out of Panama City, look at that swastika flag. It's not Nazi stuff. It's the old Kuna Indians. I love Kuna Indians, by the way. They're great people. I'm out with them a lot. But China is also using them in an information war. Recently, there was a statement that Kuna are asking the Chinese government for protection, right? And that Chinese memorial, there is a Kuna revolutionary flag. I go to it often, right there. So those two things are physically together. So, China is clearly working with some of the Indian tribes for various reasons. At the end of the day, there are multiple parties that want to rip Panama apart. One is the United States, because we want to control it. And another is China, because they want to control it. At the end of the day, I don't see how the Panamanian government survives this. I don't see how they survive it any more than Israel, other than, there's not missiles flying around Panama right now. And there may be at some point, but I'm not seeing it right now. But the insurgency is clearly growing. Like down in the Darien province, where I spend so much time, or up in Boca del Toro, it's all over the place, right? And it's spreading, not everywhere, but it's in different parts, disparate parts of Panama, including Panama City. But these various components are being, such as the Imbra Indians, Wunan Indians, Kuna Indians, Nobe Bugle Indians, they're all being used in anthropological warfare. And again, I know a lot of these Indians. I know them well. We message back and forth all the time. I'm eating with them in the jungle all the time, and they're great people. They like Americans. I like them. We even had one of them up in America talking with congressmen. Todd Bensman's group paid for him to come up. He's the mayor of 28 of the Imbra villages, Francisco Agape. I know these guys, right? So, in what's going on, I took Laura Logan out to meet some of the Indian leaders a couple months ago down in Panama, 3 months ago maybe now. And she met them. She heard what they had to say. And at the end of the day, in fact, I need to message her. She's asking me what's going on down in Panama today. But what's happening is the Panamanian government is being knocked out of the way, right? And I've warned the Panamanian government about this years ago. And at that time, they're very polite, because they're very polite people. But I could tell they had this guy's crazy look on their face that sometimes people get when you give them a dose of truth that they're not quite ready for outside of the Overton window. And but now they see it. And so, because I was warning, a lot of the actors involved here are the United Nations and other NGOs. And the United Nations and these other NGOs who have headquarters at Ciudad del Saber in Panama City, right beside Miraflores Locks, right where old Fort Clayton is. That is the headquarters of the United Nations and all these NGOs in Panama. And I'm telling them, I said, that is the people that's going to knock you out of your job and your government out of power. That's the people. And they looked at me like, who is this crazy guy? I'm like, just remember, because here's my number. You know what I mean? When it starts to happen, you're going to need to close those people down, because they're going to close you down. You either close them down or they're going to close you down, right? And now the government's clearly starting to see these NGOs are problematic. But remember, those NGOs are also puppets. They have a mind of their own too, but they have some agency as well. But they also are puppets of CCP and the United States. They're like Israel. They're everybody's useful idiot that it's got enough money.
What do you say to people in the United States that are cheering on the fact that, oh, it had to be done? We cannot allow Iran to be a bully. We can't allow them to have a nuclear weapon. And they are chanting death to America. And these are Trump supporters.
Yeah, we should actually clean out those nuclear weapons in the Middle East. And we have to, of course, start with Israel, right? Because Israel's constantly threatening to nuke people, right? So there is no evidence that Iran has any nuclear weapons. Pakistan sure does, right? India does, right? Those weapons are there to stay. And if Iran wants nuclear weapons, you could have taken out the whole mountain where that facility allegedly still was. And it doesn't matter. They can just get them from Pakistan right next door. Iran has a border with Pakistan. I've been on that border quite a lot. I've been on the Afghan-Iran border a lot, and the Iraq-Afghan border a lot. The Iran Afghan border and the Iraq-Iran border. They all border. Look at the map. You know what I'm saying? All these SCO partners and other parts of this equation. You can look at the geography and realize, wait a minute, Israel is completely dependent on one group of people, and that's Americans who still support them. And that number is clearly decreasing by the hour, right? And when that's gone, Israel's gone. Now, what does that portend? Who will take over Israel, right? Russia? China? China has already, invested heavily in Haifa, right? I mean, you can't make up this stuff. When I brought that up to Israelis years ago, I'm like, you're doing so much. Any weapon that we sell or donate or whatever we do to Israel, somehow they get them. That technology instantly goes straight to China. They sell it all. I mean, they're not our allies. They're milking the cow. They're actually milking the U.S. cow. They're milking the cow of stupidity, basically. And they literally take our systems and sell them to the highest bidder. And they do business with the Chinese just as much as anybody else. I mean, China's got controlling interest in a lot of American infrastructure. By the way, it's not just like it's happening downrange. You hear Trump talking about, we got to knock China out of the Panama area, which I'm all for. But at the same time, what about China in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, in our own harbors, in our own institutions, right? We're focusing on things over there when we need to be I want to repeat something that was very important people may have missed. Iran and Russia and China are all around us, right? They have huge community up. The Iranians have a huge community up in Canada, as do Chinese all over the place, all over the Americas, including the United States and Canada and Thailand and all over the place, right? All these places I go, right? And China has a port in Bahamas right off the Florida coast. We went over and looked. They have a huge interest in Antigua, Cuba, all kinds of Venezuela, right? Who hates us. They work with obviously Mexico, who has their own war brewing and who essentially has declared war on us. And meanwhile, we're running off to put all of our natural resources, our ability to defend ourselves is going off to defend the magical elves, of which there might be 2 million anyway, right? This doesn't make any sense other than as a psyop that's used to milk and drain Americans to death. And I don't mean milk the cow and the cow keeps getting to eat grass and make more milk and be a slave. I'm talking milked to actual death. The United States is being destroyed. Highest, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, along with Catholic Charities, Lutheran Services, and other NGOs, have invaded the United States with unknown millions of people, unknown numbers. It's got to be in the tens of millions. At least about 1.4 million came through just the Darien Gap just during Biden's time, right? And by the way, Trump has not done anything to get rid of the invasion architecture for our borders. The invasion has decreased, but the architecture is still there. I've said this 1,000 times since even before the election. If somebody's serious about stopping the invasion of the United States, they have to take out United Nations, which would take a lot of problems away from us. But that's not happened. That's not happened. All the camps are still down there in Darien. They're in Colombia. They're all over the place. They're still there. The spigot is largely turned down or off in some places, mostly just on the big picture it's turned down. It's not off. But the architecture is fully there. All the plumbing is still in place to just start it right up again. That would be like, getting Iran to stop launching missiles for a little while, and then they, but don't do anything about it, but let them keep building up missiles, right? I mean, the architecture for invading the United States is fully there, and I expect it's going to happen again. At some point, I think our borders are going to be wide open again.
What about, what do you say to people that, I mean, because of all, the great work you and others have done, the millions of illegals, invaders that have come in the United States, well, they're here now. And, Iran is not going to just sit back idle through all this. So what do you say to the people that, that these illegals are all over the place in the United States?
We're not doing mass deportations, are we? Didn't Trump say we were going to do that? Yeah. And so we're not. We're just not doing it. At the end of the day, like, skip past all that, people are in his way, yada, yada. We're not doing it. And the infrastructure to do it again is untouched. Look at the fact pattern. The guy who pushed the jabs, the guy who faked the assassination thing, the guy who faked a lot of things, the guy who lies perpetually, like Netanyahu does. And, they're no more reliable than North Korea. They simply cannot be believed on anything. We have to look at what they're physically doing. The architecture for invasion is still in place. United Nations is still energized and funded, right? The war with Iran is going to grow. It's going to grow. Watch. It will grow. By the time we've been talking right now, the Strait of Hormuz may have been closed. I don't know. But it's possible. And we could check Maritime Tracker right now, right? And if that happens, they're going to blame it on, why would Iran close the Strait of Hormuz? I mean, so that their own partner, China, can't get energy, right? They wouldn't do that. But the United States or Israel would, so that we could blame it on Iran as casus belli to put troops on the ground. And there's people that know zero about the military or about Iran, or even what language they speak in Iran. You know what I mean? They don't even know things like this. And yet they're like, we should go in there and do this stuff. Israeli special forces can go in and take out the nuclear facility, people say. When people say that, they're just out of their mind. I mean, it's like Cuckooville, right? Israeli special forces. You got to be ultra special to go in and spend like months going through all those tunnels and stuff, and to do things without being wiped off the face of the earth. You got to be super duper special, and they ain't that special, right? And so, I mean, again, a lot of people say things like they're moving magical pawns that don't exist, right? As in a chessboard where they don't understand the rules of chess or anything else that they're talking about. Iran and its partners almost certainly are going to defeat Israel at this point. Almost certainly. I don't know how it's going to look. I don't know if it's going to happen. But if I were a betting man, that's where I would I would short Israel. Let's put it that way, because that's just the reality of the situation. Ukraine had a much better chance than Israel. And I said since the beginning, since before the first shot was fired, I think Ukraine is going to come out of this very badly. look at anything that I wrote, any of the old uh, interviews that I did. It's come out, pretty close, really close. I mean, right there in the bullseye, right? And the same with Israel. All the energy is against Israel, and a problem that we've had is that the fractious nature of the people, the Zionist people that are there, have created. They have this thing. Professional victims equal predators, right? So they have this. We have to be they're absolutely professional at being victims. Nobody does victimhood better, right? And so that sort of behavior is deadly. Professional victims are predators, and as soon as somebody throws the anti-Semite card as an example, or the anti-Jew card, when it's not in actual evidence, that's a predator. That's an actual predator. Like a real predator. And I don't give them an out on that. Somebody on my Substack comment yesterday called me a Jew hater. And I said right there, PV equals P. It's a supporter and everything else. I'm like, have a nice day. Don't need your money. Don't want you around. If you're throwing when you disagree with what I'm saying and you call me a Jew hater, you're a predator. A predator. Predators cause nothing but trouble. They're going to cause you problems. They're going to stab you in the back, right? And that's what Israel is per se, is a professional victim, right? It's a professional victim. And the moment you say something they don't like, oh, anti-Jew, anti-Semite, we're done with that. The magic wand again is broken. It's in the fireplace, crackling away over there with the rest of the wood. And that the magic is out of the wand. Let's put it this way. And so that they have tried that wand on so many people, but it doesn't work on others. It doesn't work on Russians. It doesn't work on Chinese. It doesn't work on Arabs. It doesn't work on Lebanese. It doesn't work on any of them, right? It only works on a subset of Americans, right? That's it. The rest of the world, but since Americans are surrounded by generally with other Americans, they must think that the rest of the world actually buys into that crap. There's billions of other people on Earth that just totally don't buy in. By the way, a lot of people on Earth, I've been through this for years, asking people like, how big is Israel? What are the biggest countries in the world? A lot of people think Israel is one of the biggest countries in the world. They actually think that. They actually believe Israel is one of the, that's how uneducated most of the world is about the rest of the world. You can ask some of your friends from the United States, actually. A lot of Americans think Israel is some giant country. That's how uneducated they are about anything that's going on. They don't realize that they're basically a mouse with a microphone, and that they're useful idiots as well for that strategic land right there by the Suez Canal and other strategic interest in the area.
What about potential attacks within the United States? The likelihood of it or the probability, in your estimation?
It looks like a church got attacked this morning. What happened there? I don't have any idea. I don't know who it was. It could have been anybody. But the likelihood, I mean, they're happening all the time. There's not like any likelihood. I mean, it's happening. It's like it's approximately 100% because it's been happening. And so even people that come through the Darien Gap are regularly attacking people, and I check them on the database. Yep, there's another one. Guy that killed Laken Riley came through the Darien Gap, right? The guy that shot a Jewish guy yelling Allahu Akbar. He was from Mauritania, Africa. He came through the Darien Gap. His name's on the list of people. That means HIAS helped him at least twice. Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society is actually helping Iranians and others invade the United States. Let me repeat that. The Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society is actually helping invade the United States. The Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society is helping huge numbers of Muslims invade the United States and Canada. And for instance, this lady that recently got burned in an attack in Colorado, she claims to be a Holocaust victim, professional victim, but she's too young for that, so she's lying. But she was in a photo, she's in her 80s or so, she's in a photo, she's wearing a HIAS tag, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society thing, like the Star of David almost, right? She's wearing this thing, and then she gets attacked by a guy that the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society helped get into the United States. She's wearing a Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society tag. She got attacked, and then she blamed it on anti-Semitism. I'm like, You're the one that let them in. You're anti-me. You're anti-my family. You're anti-my country, right? And you came to the United States as an immigrant and then came in and opened the door for others who are now murdering people, including us, right? We're done with it. The magic wand is broken. The moment somebody throws the anti-Semitism or anti-Jew card, you need to like shut them down. Like, that's it. You're a predator. I don't want anything to do with you. I will not support you again. I will not help you again. I do not want your support. I do not need your help. Go away, right? That's the way. Once we start responding like that, it will end, because professional victims, they're the ones who, they have a certain way. Like, I've seen gypsies around the world. They have a certain way of going like this. When they get a certain look on their face when they put their foot, their hand to their mouth, like they need to eat, and except they're bigger than I am. And there's a guy doing that in a restaurant down in the Darien, literally eating beside me in a restaurant. He'd come through the Darien Gap, and he was literally eating, and he clearly had money, and he was going like this to me, like he needs more money, right? It's that gypsy look. Al Johnson and I, he's my research partner, we've tried to find a name for that look, because it's the same look I see all over the place, right? I see it, gypsies do it. But it's a certain way that many of the gypsies learn when they're children to beg, and this look that they get on their face is one of, it's like every feeling that you can, it's sort of like, don't you feel guilty for not helping me, and I'm hungry, and all these different things, and I watch them on the bridge in London, or I'm in Prague watching them, and I'm in Warsaw, and all that. I see them all over the place. It's the same thing. I see a lot of Venezuelans come in doing that exact same. It's a specific judo of the mind. It's a face move. But we didn't find any name for this acting move. We spent hours and hours looking online and had others checking for us. Maybe somebody knows the name. I've asked gypsies, is there a name for this? I mean, but that's what Israel does. They give you this look like, if you don't help me, if you don't give me the other kidney and the kidneys of your children and your neighbors, you're bad. You're evil, because we're victims, and you need to give us your blood. You need to give us everything, because we're victims. Those are predators. Those are our enemies, straight up, right? And once you start to lay down the law, like, you won't cross this line and still get support, period. You will not demand help from me, right? You demand help from me, and the door is shut, right? You'll ask with your hat in your hand, and I'll either do it or I won't do it. But if you try to make me feel guilty, that's it. I'm going to see you as a predator, and I'm going to warn my friends about you, right? So I mean, that's, once we play like that, it changes the way that this whole relationship works. One of respect, mutual respect. We're not your cows. We're not your slaves, and we're sick of it.
With the events that have unfolded here over the weekend, do you see you've talked about famine, you've talked about the collapse of our societies across the world, but specifically here in the United States. Will this escalate that process, that deterioration, in your view?
Can you repeat that? Something's happening.
No, it's okay. So with the events that have occurred over the weekend in the Middle East, and with the United States involvement now in this conflict, you've talked, you and I have spoken many times about, famine, collapse of America. I was talking offline about, the homeless and, the decay of society as I've been traveling around to several of these cities. Do you see that escalating or accelerating here in the United States now, with possible more unrest, more, cyber, what have you, because of what's occurred in the Middle East?
Yeah, definitely. And if the Strait of Hormuz is closed, again, I don't think Iran will be the one to do it. I think it'll be Israel and or the United States, right? And to close the Strait of Hormuz and then blame it on Iran, because this is obviously in service to the larger goal of creating famines and other disasters. If you close the Strait of Hormuz and the Bab el-Mandeb, thus the Suez, and Panama Canal, you're going to end up with famines, right? Especially if you then close Malacca or a few of those others. But it doesn't have to be permanently closed, but just interrupt a lot of the travel, right? In any case, I don't believe Iran has any interest in closing the Strait of Hormuz, and China certainly doesn't want to close. Japan doesn't want to close. They get a lot of their energy through there. A lot of European countries obviously don't want to get. A huge amount of people don't want that closed, except for those who want to depopulate. They want it closed, right? Why would Iran want it to close? They don't want to depopulate. They're not one of the depopulators, right? They've resisted the World Health Organization when a lot of other people just jumped in line on the World Health Organization. Iran resisted it, right? A lot of the great Satan countries did not. They just, let's face it. When people are changing boys into girls and girls into boys at young ages and too young to, and throwing pills into so many people, drugging up our whole communities, weapons of mass destruction across apparently billions of people on Earth, nobody knows. That is great Satan stuff. That's full-on great Satan stuff. And then obviously provoking a war with Iran, which Israel habitually does. Ever since they've come into that region, it's been nothing but war.
Where can people find you, Michael?
Substack, right? And you'll find a lot of stuff on there that's not anywhere else. Look at the attacks that happened on Israel after the bombings in Iran. And are those in the news, the attacks on Israel? Or I haven't seen them. Like, I did a web search a couple of hours ago, and I didn't see anything about how severe those attacks were. But I've got, I don't know, probably a dozen or more videos and a bunch of photos that came in, and they're on my Substack. I mean, there was devastation in Israel after the attack, and I see these articles coming out even this afternoon saying we're waiting for Iran's response. I'm like, Iran's response? They just leveled almost city blocks over there, right? I mean, they just, in Israel, they showered Israel with missiles. They've already responded, and there's no end in sight. They're not going to just turn Iran off. It's magical thinking.
What do you tell people in the United States, to best prepare for what you've been talking about, what's coming?
Well, I think we're going to see famines. At some point, we may see our electrical grid go down and your banks not work, obviously. And I don't know. I mean, nobody knows. Well, somebody probably knows. Keep in mind, it's a multiplayer game. So it's not like there's one person somewhere who's running it all. I mean, there's the oligarchical systems of the Chinese and the Russians and then separate ones that both overlap. And this is old kings vying for power type stuff, Machiavellianism, the prince, that sort of stuff on a modern iteration. None of this is new, by the way. It's just bigger and more modern. But if you read about the old empire wars in the 1500s and the 1600s and the 1700s, or way back before biblical times, this is the same thing. It's just now we've got screens that we get to talk about it. And the average person who actually wants to study actually is in a position to do it now. You're in a position to study in ways that you never could before. And so that's a difference. That's a huge difference.
Michael, I always appreciate you making time for me, And, thank you as always. I look forward to continuing to read your Substack and more conversations ahead.
Thank you, Michael. And thanks for having me on.
Mic drop.